Elena confronts a seemingly skeptical father, Vergara, after his connection to his sudden disappearance of the neighborhood girl. As untimely deaths befold the town, Marquess Rokay presents Elena with an enticing job offer, and Merc urges Paco to keep his distance from the mayhem. Hey, what's going on, everybody, and welcome back to my channel, Movie Files. Elliot back again discussing episode 2 of 30 Coins, and episode 2 was titled Ouija. Very excited to break down this episode in this spoiler review, but before we dive into the details, as you all can see on the screen now, make sure you're following me on all my other social media accounts like Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, which you can find all those links in the description below. If you are new to the channel, welcome to the community. Consider subscribing and hitting that notification bell. That way you can get the alert from when I drop new content. It would mean a lot to me if you all can like and share this video. It really helps out the channel, but I also appreciate all the support. And in the comments, let's discuss this second episode, which if you all saw my review, go check out my review that I did for episode 1. But this episode, I think, might even be just as better as episode 1. We get a lot of new characters. We get his imminence. We learn more about the coin. This is a really great episode, and I'm really excited to talk about it. But I want to talk to you all about it in the comments below. So, again, if you haven't already, go check out my episode 1 review that I dropped an hour ago. And we're now discussing episode 2. So, unlike that first video, I'm going to jump right into the spoilers. So, again, spoiler warning. If you haven't seen episode 1 of this show, go check it out, check out my review, then watch episode 2 and come back and join the conversation. So we're talking full spoilers for Ouija. First and foremost, again, my initial thoughts. I really enjoy this show. This show has the perfect amount of horror, thriller. I'm liking these characters so far, even though I don't really know their full backgrounds. This coin, we learn more about Judith and this coins. He obviously took the coins in return for giving up Jesus Christ. So there's a lot going on in the biblical sense. We have his imminence. We just have a lot of great stuff going on in this episode, and I really enjoyed it. And I really don't know what to expect next, because this show seems to be having like we expect in most shows. Every week we're going to probably have this news type of situation where the imminence and his people are going to try to influence or possess people. And with that comes, we had the episode 1 going on with the monster and the baby. This episode we have possession with the Ouija. I don't know what's to come next week. It's going to be some other possession, some other monster, some other ghost hunted house situation. I don't know, but I can't wait. But this episode was a lot of fun, and also very creepy with Soleil, I believe her name was, with her finger and her mouth, and the visual effects was just so awesome. I'm really enjoying this show. So let's break down this episode. So from episode 1 to episode 2, I believe we are about a month apart from the first episode. I believe they say so, where we see Elena going to see the father. He says, "Oh, it's been a month. I haven't seen you. How have you been doing?" So we have had a month break between the first events to this episode. But then very early on, we meet his imminence, and we see him talking amongst his people, saying that we're not going to kill the father. I want him to come to us and bring us that coin, which we'll talk about the coin and Judas being brought back and Antonio and the connections there. But I'm loving this kind of sense of, can we trust the father? Was he, a part of this group and his inmates for a while? Did he come up with these plans? There's so much to explore with these characters. But one of the new characters we meet very early on is Rokay, I believe how you pronounce his name. He is a very rich man. He has his own kind of castle situation. He has a thing for Elena, and we look like we might have a love triangle between Elena, Rokay, and as well as Paco. So that's something to look forward to. But nonetheless, again, we can see that he's rich. He actually wanted to run for mayor. He actually lost to Paco, so there's a little bit of tension there between those two men. But again, it seems like the biggest thing is that he has some feelings for Elena, whose husband is still out there. We don't learn much about his disappearance, but I assume that will be coming in future episodes. But he did say something to Elena in this episode very early on, which is he has a lot of eyes and ears in the towns, informants, as he says. So I wonder right now, especially the way things end, which Rokay should have died, but nonetheless, I believe he may have some influence on the coin in future episodes, if I will say myself, as far as early predictions go. But moving forward, we get introduced to the main plot of this episode, which is the Ouija board. We meet the cafe's son or stepson, I believe. I'm not too sure if he's his real father or if he's just a stepfather, but we see that he comes to the bar, takes some alcohol. He goes to a cemetery with his friends. They're performing this Ouija way of speaking to the spirits at a cemetery. We learn that that one of the young girls, one of the main characters in this episode, Soleil, her mother passed away recently. She, killed herself. She jumped off of the building. She was a cook for Roche, and she jumped off because she learned the news that she had cancer. And we see that they're talking to a spirit, and we learn the name of the spirit is the same name of the boy that was possessed, and the exorcism was performed on him by the father. So obviously there's some connective tissues, and again, the Eminence and his people are finding every little way to get their way into the claws and getting their claws into the father and bringing up the past. So we learn within this cemetery again, his Eminence and his others have extreme powers, or like Sith Lords at this point. They're able to take Soleil, and we see her later on, but they take her to this kind of, she said it's not heaven or hell. It's kind of, she was like in limbo, like she couldn't control her body. We all know that this show so far has a heavy influence on possession, but the first half of the episode, just, they're trying to figure out what happened to Soleil. Where is she? They're thinking the kids are lying. They think they did something to her, but then we learn, because we see that Elena, being the great character, I'm really enjoying her character so far, and she's just so nice, and so wants to get in an adventure. She wants to help everyone out. She visits one of the girls that was a friend to Soleil, and she tells her that she had her own experience with a Ouija board when she was younger, and she described what happened about her grandmother, and how the spirit knew her grandmother's name. Her friends didn't know the name, so she believes in these spirits, and she kind of connects to the girl, and the girl kind of tells her the information, which was regarding, the name of the boy that was performed the exorcism, which we see Elena going to the father, paying him a visit, and that's again when they had mentioned that we had a time gap between last episode and this episode, being that it's a month separated from each other. So she wants the information from the father, and the father's just like, well, I'm not going to give you information. It's a secret, confession, and he doesn't really bring up the importance of this coin quite yet, which will be really interesting to see what his connection is to that coin. Again, was he a part of the Eminence and his crew and doing, wrongdoings and praying to Judas, which is going to be really interesting to see what comes of all that, and we'll obviously talk about that a little bit later. But long story short, we see Soleil's friends having a conversation on social media or something like that, and Soleil talks to them in the phone, and they ask her, where is she? She brings up to them, she calls her friend on the phone, which is a really creepy moment. She tells her, perform the Ouija again, and I can be brought back. We see the kids go to this abandoned house. One of the girl tells, Elena about this. She meets him at the place. They perform the Ouija. The Ouija says, we want to talk to her being Elena. Then Elena, even though she's scared, because she's like, last time I was with a Ouija board, it brought up my grandmother. I believe in this stuff. I don't want to play around with evil spirits, but she decides to help him out, and they tell her they want the coin, which at this point, the room goes to black. We see the shadows of the Eminence looking at her, and then they bring back Soleil. She's brought back, but we can just tell there's something off with her. And speaking of something off with her, you can just see it on her face. She's herself, but she's possessed. Again, the show has a heavy influence on possession from the very first episode to where we are now. So we see that Soleil is, kind of acting a little weird. She visits the father. She says that your friends want to see you again. They want to speak to you. They want what's theirs. And the father, he's really he has to step up, man. He knows he has to speak to them in order for this town to be saved. But nonetheless, we see that she goes in the streets. She runs into this random gentleman and tells him that he's going to die the day, which we see the consequences of that happening. So we now have, I believe, 2 people have been killed in this town. Carmen's husband, now this guy being told that he's going to be killed. So there's a lot of death going on in this small town that has no major crime, no major things going on until the last few months with the priest coming in town. So fast forward, the friend visits Soleil, the young girl visits her friend Soleil, and she tells her that she can see people's auras. She can see if they're good or bad, and tells her that one of the gentlemen with flowers is going to die next, which, the friend goes and tells Elena, says, I know that this guy is going to die. I don't know if I should believe it or not. And Elena's like, no, it's probably not going to happen. And we see this guy dies, which reminded me a lot of like Final Destination or something in nature. They could have stopped it, but they didn't. Now at this point, Paco and his wife are involved, and his wife just wants him to focus on the politics. Don't worry about the supernatural and babies coming out of cows and people dying and knowing they're going to die ahead of time. You need to focus on your responsibilities. But Paco's noticing that Rokay is making his move towards Elena again. There's going to be a love triangle going on sooner rather than later. Fast forward to later half in the episode. We're now at the point where Soleil is fully possessed by his imminence. We see that she goes to the father's house. She sees a knife. She cuts off her finger. It says, if you don't tell me where the coin is, we're going to take this girl's mouth, her tongue, just torturing, piecing her, chopping her up piece to piece. He doesn't want that to happen. So the father knows where the coin is. He goes to Elena's house. She's not there. They look all over the house for the coin. They can't find it. We see that, oh, and by the way, let me rewind a little bit. She puts the knife in her mouth, cuts her mouth open. It reminded me of Oculus. I don't know if you all saw the movie Oculus with that moment. And there's a movie with Keith and Sutherland when they put the knife in her. That stuff like that gets to me. It's the gore in this show is top notch. So nonetheless, they go to the house. We see Elena being dropped off by Rokay. They go in the house. The whole thing shakes out. She doesn't want to give up the coin. We see that she stabs Rokay. I thought he was going to die right then and there. He's still alive. We see that the imminence is now in the house with them. We see the father tells her to Soleil that your mother didn't, she wasn't possessed. She was just ill. She was sick. She wasn't going to live with this terminal cancer. So he's trying to get her back, get out of her head. And she's at this point, she's just controlled by what the father's saying, what the imminence and his people saying. She lifts the house. I don't know what, again, these are Sith Lords. She has major powers. Lifts the house. There's a tornado going up in the air. We see Elena still has the coin in her possession. We see that she eventually kind of listens to what the father's saying. Listens, your mother's, she wants you to, think about your mom. Think about your mom. She eventually closes up the portal. By the way, Rokay goes in this portal and lands on the ground. I don't know how this man survived unless it's going to be revealed that he's tied to his imminence and has some type of mark of Cain and can't be killed. Because, my man got stabbed 7 times in the back. He rolls up in this portal, lands on his face on the concrete. I don't know how he lived. Long story short, we wrap up the episode. They sew the young girl's mouth open. I guess she's fine now. I don't know if she's still possessed. They're not in her head. They're not using her body as a vessel. We'll see. We see Paco is, one of which we see that Elena and is really checking in on Roche, rubbing his hand. He's liking that. He offers her a job to go out of town, but we see, once Paco learns the news, he's like, no, don't go. This is where the show gets a little melodramatic in the love story going on here. I can't have you go. I can't figure all this out by myself. We see the episode wraps up where we pan the camera. We go to Antonio's room. We see the imminence and his shadowy Darth Sith Lords talking to him, and he mentions to them, I'm going to work my way with the pastor or to the father. I'm going to get the coin. And he says, praise be, or we're going to get the day of Judas back. So the coin again ties into the intro of the show where we see Judith turns in Jesus Christ. He's hung on the obviously in the biblical sense, he's hung on the cross. He gets his money, but he hangs himself. So again, did he hang himself because he was possessed by greed? Did he hang himself because this was a deal with the devil? And I'm not sure if we're going to get more of the Judas background and why he hung himself and the importance of these coins of greed and why they're worshiping Judith, and is he going to come back in the present day? There's a lot of stuff to explore, but nonetheless, this was a really solid episode. Again, Soleil in her mouth was a very cool visual effect. The whole house coming up, these imminence and his people is really interesting. The father's connection. What is Antonio going to do now? Another character that should have died last week when he jumped off of a roof and landed on a car. Again, I don't know if is it a matter of once you're in the presence of the imminence and his people, you have some type of protection from not dying. Again, very, very interesting nonetheless. But again, I'm still interested in learning more about Elena and her missing husband, Elena, Paco, and Rokay, and this love triangle, as well as the father. What will they do now to get his intention to get this coin into their possession? And what's next week's episode going to be in regards to possession? Are we going to have a haunted house? Is it going to be another monster? That monster from episode 1 still out there. So there's a lot to explore in weeks ahead. I'm really into this show. I'm loving it thus far. 2 for 2 for me. And that's my thoughts on episode 2, Ouija. But I want to know your thoughts on this episode. Let's discuss it all in the comments. Your spoilers, your thoughts, your theories. Now, we'll address this show. It premiered in Europe back in November. I think they're on episode 6. So if you have seen those episodes, please don't spoil the episodes ahead. But if you're like me and just watching this for the first time on, HBO Europe and episode 1 and 2 premiering tonight, let's go on this journey together. Let's keep it spoiler free in regards to episodes ahead for those internationally that have I think they're 4 episodes ahead of us. So let's have a good time. I'm really looking forward to covering this show every single Monday after the episode premieres. But again, I'm doing these to interact with you. So leave your thoughts in the comments, your pros, your cons. Are you liking it thus far? What's some of your theories? Let's discuss it all and have a great discussion in the comments below. As always, make sure to like, share, comment below, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell. That way you get the alert from when I drop new videos for 30 coins, new videos for Dickinson coming soon, season 2, Servant season 2, WandaVision, and all the movie reviews and live streams that we do on this channel. Thank you all for watching these reviews. Hope you're staying safe, and we'll see you in the next video.